In a small town where everyone knows everyone, a new kid named Malik found himself walking into a school that didn't seem to want him there. The stares, the whispers, the judgment, it all felt too familiar. But this time, it wasn't just the usual struggle. There was something darker in the air. Malik's mother had promised him a fresh start, a clean slate away from the shadows of their past. But there's one thing you can't escape, no matter where you go, your name. The name Wallace carries a weight in this town, and Malik knew it well. His father, Marcus Wallace, was no ordinary man. His reputation as a notorious crime boss was whispered in every corner of Lincoln Heights. His name was feared, respected, and avoided by everyone, even the law. And Malik, he was just his son, but that alone made him a target. At Ridgemont High, Malik quickly caught the attention of Bryce Tanner, the so-called king of the school. He had everything: money, power, influence. But Malik wasn't impressed. Bryce didn't know it yet, but he had picked the wrong person to mess with. In the cafeteria, with the weight of the entire school's gaze on him, Bryce made his move. "Lost, huh?" he taunted. But Malik didn't flinch. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He simply took his seat, ignoring the growing tension. It wasn't about what Bryce said or did. It was about something deeper. Bryce wanted to see Malik break, to lose control, but Malik wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. He'd been through far worse than a bully like Bryce. But Bryce didn't back off. Every day, he came at Malik with subtle, cruel games designed to provoke him. The rumors, the harassment, the public humiliation. It was relentless. Malik knew it wasn't about the punches or the threats. It was about controlling the narrative, making him feel small, weak, and afraid. Still, Malik stayed calm. But deep inside, something was boiling. The real question wasn't how long he could ignore it, but how long before he had to fight back. This is the story of how a kid named Malik stood his ground, not with fists, but with his own strength. His ability to control himself when everyone around him expected him to fail. Watch this story unfold and see how Malik showed everyone that no matter who you are or where you come from, you define your own story. This is Acts of Kindness Stories. Malik had only been at Ridgemont High for a few days, but already, he felt the weight of his father's name following him. The whispers, the stares, and the judgment. He could feel it all around him. It was like every student there knew who he was, but no one dared to actually speak his name aloud. They didn't need to. His last name said everything. Wallace. The name was more than just a surname. It was a legacy. Malik had tried to escape it, to build his own identity in a new town, but no matter where he went, he couldn't outrun his father's past. Marcus Wallace wasn't just anyone. He was a feared crime boss who had his hands in shady deals, someone who loomed over Lincoln Heights like a shadow. The police knew all about him, but they couldn't touch him. That power, that fear, it all followed Malik to Ridgemont High. It wasn't that Malik was ashamed of who he was or where he came from. It was that the world around him was too quick to judge. His classmates didn't know him. They only knew the stories. They didn't see the kid who loved to read or the one who spent hours practicing his basketball shots alone on the court. They saw a name, a reputation, and they couldn't look past that. It didn't take long for the king of Ridgemont High to notice him. Bryce Tanner. Malik had seen his type before. Rich, arrogant, and used to getting everything he wanted. The kind of kid who never had to lift a finger to get what he wanted, but still acted like the world owed him something. Malik had seen it too many times in other schools. Kids like Bryce who used their status to belittle others. Bryce wasn't just another bully. He was the kind of kid who thrived on controlling the people around him, feeding off their fear, and using it to elevate himself. It started with a simple taunt, an almost casual "lost, huh?" as Malik walked into the cafeteria. But Malik wasn't lost. He wasn't here to get involved in Bryce's games. He was here to blend in, to escape his past, to start over. But that was never going to happen, not when someone like Bryce saw him as a threat. Bryce's smirk only deepened when Malik didn't respond. He could feel the weight of his gaze, the way the whole cafeteria seemed to be holding its breath. But Malik knew better than to play into it. He took a seat, carefully placing his tray on the table, ignoring the murmurs and stares that followed him. He was used to this, the quiet tension in the air, the feeling that everyone was waiting for something. And Bryce was waiting for Malik to crack, to show that he was just another kid who couldn't handle the pressure. But Malik wasn't that kid. He wasn't here to play Bryce's games. The next day, Bryce's tactics grew more subtle. Rumors began to swirl, whispers that followed Malik down the halls. "Did you hear? He's Marcus Wallace's son. Probably just like his dad." It was all lies. Malik didn't need to defend himself. He knew how this went. People would label him before he even had a chance to speak. The whispers, the looks, the way everyone seemed to size him up. He had been through this before. But this time it hurt more. This time it was about more than just fitting in. It was about proving that he wasn't who they thought he was. The harassment continued. It wasn't just rumors now. It was deliberate. Malik found his locker wrecked, his books scattered, papers torn, and his water bottle dumped over his belongings. A simple test, a way for Bryce to see how he would react. Malik didn't flinch. He picked up his things, closed his locker, and walked away like nothing had happened. That's what people like Bryce wanted to see. Someone who would lose control, who would show weakness. But Malik wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. Lunch came, and it wasn't any better. As Malik walked out of class and into the cafeteria, he felt the familiar pressure of Bryce's gaze. The smirk, the friends laughing in the background. It was all the same. Only this time the shove came first. A sharp, purposeful hand slammed into his shoulder. Not a casual pat, but an unmistakable challenge. Malik didn't react. He simply turned to face Bryce. The laughter continued. But Malik didn't show any sign of surprise. He just stood there, calm, his eyes meeting Bryce's, and waited for him to make the next move. This time, Bryce's smile faltered, just for a second, as he realized Malik wasn't going to fall for the trap. But that didn't mean Bryce would stop. Bryce wanted a reaction. He wanted Malik to lose control, to become the monster everyone expected him to be. And as the days passed, it only got worse. The whispers intensified. The harassment grew more relentless. Still Malik stayed silent. He refused to let them drag him into the mess they had created. But Malik knew. He could only ignore it for so long. Then came the breaking point. One afternoon after school, Bryce crossed the line. In the parking lot, surrounded by his friends, Bryce threw his soda at Malik, drenching him in the cold liquid. Malik stood still, taking a deep breath, but this time he couldn't just walk away. The anger was bubbling up inside him, and he felt his fist tighten. But Malik didn't give in. He walked away from Bryce's taunt without a word. He wasn't about to let Bryce make him the villain in this story. But something had shifted in Malik. He could feel the weight of everyone's expectations, the constant reminder that they saw him as nothing more than his father's son. He knew this was more than just bullying. This was about breaking him down, testing how long he could hold on before he finally snapped. Malik knew that he was in control. He didn't need to react the way they wanted. He had a better plan. The next day, Malik's choice was clear. Bryce might have thought he was playing a game, but Malik wasn't going to let him be the one to dictate the rules. This time, Malik was ready to face the situation head-on. But what happened next changed everything. Bryce tried to make his move. He and his friends cornered Malik behind the football field, ready for a fight. This wasn't a simple challenge. This was a planned attack, a way to remind Malik who was in control. But Malik wasn't the same kid who had walked into Ridgemont High a few weeks ago. He had been through too much. He had endured too many insults, too many silent attacks. And now he was ready to stand up. As Bryce took a step forward, Malik's calm exterior began to crack. He took off his backpack, placed it on the ground, and prepared himself for what was coming. The crowd gathered around, the familiar faces of Bryce's friends standing in the background, But Malik didn't feel fear. This was his moment, the moment he would prove that he wasn't anyone's prey. Bryce smirked, thinking Malik would back down, but Malik didn't. In an instant, he moved faster than Bryce expected. The first punch hit Bryce in the ribs. A perfect uppercut to the jaw sent him stumbling backward, and the King of Ridgemont High crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. The crowd fell silent. Malik didn't wait for applause. He didn't need it. He stood over Bryce, looking down at him, and asked in a steady voice, "Are you done?" Bryce didn't answer. He just lay there, defeated, humiliated in front of everyone. Malik wasn't the same kid anymore. He wasn't the quiet, invisible boy trying to escape his past. He had taken control of his own narrative. The story of Malik Wallace wasn't over, but this was his turning point. He had shown everyone that he was not defined by his father's reputation or the expectations placed on him by others. And no one, not even Bryce Tanner, could take that from him. As the crowd dispersed, Malik walked away, his back straight, his mind clear. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. He had already won. But the real battle was just beginning. The whispers would continue, Bryce would come back, and the pressure would keep mounting. But Malik knew one thing for sure. He was ready. The days that followed were nothing like Malik had expected. He had stepped into the unknown, faced his fears head-on, and stood up for himself when everyone thought he'd crumble. The entire school had watched, waiting for him to back down, for him to give in to the pressure. But Malik didn't break. Instead, he showed them something they never expected. He showed them who he really was. Not the son of a crime boss, not a target for bullies, but someone who could control his own story. As he walked through the halls the next day, things were different. The whispers weren't the same anymore. There was a shift in how people looked at him. It wasn't just fear, it was respect. His name, Wallace, no longer carried the weight of his father's past, but the strength of his own actions. Malik had earned something far more valuable than a reputation. He had earned his peace. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. His confidence came from within, not from the approval of others. Bryce Tanner, though, wasn't done. He may have disappeared for now, but Malik knew better than to think it was over. Bryce might have lost the battle, but he would never give up the war. Malik understood that. But this time, he wasn't the one on the defensive. He was ready for whatever came next, because he had learned that the real battle wasn't about fists or power. It was about control. Control over your own choices, control over your own emotions, control over your future. And Malik knew that now, more than ever, he was in control. It wasn't just about surviving the fight, it was about becoming stronger because of it. His journey didn't end with a victory over Bryce. It was just the beginning of something much bigger. Malik had a future ahead of him, one he could shape with his own hands. As Malik continued to rise, his story wasn't just about one fight. It was about resilience, growth, and the power to define who you are, no matter what others might say. Malik's strength was never in what people expected him to do. It was in what he chose to do. And now it's your turn. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to stand up for yourself? Have you ever been underestimated, only to prove everyone wrong? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you've overcome the challenges in your life. If Malik's story inspired you, hit the like button. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that they can take control of their own narrative. And don't forget to subscribe to Acts of Kindness Stories. We're on a mission to hit 10,000 subscribers. And with your support, we know we can get there. Thank you for watching, and remember, your story isn't defined by your past, but by what you choose to do today.